Welcome to the Political Checkmate, and today I'm going to checkmate this video from Kyle Kulinski called Denver Gave the Homeless $1,000 per month and it worked perfectly. And before I begin, this is going to be a skeptical checkmate of UBI studies in general. So now that I got that out of the way, here we go.
There's two types of studies that when they come out, we get the exact same answer every single time. Okay. One of them is a 4-day work week. Anybody who does a pilot program or some sort of study about the 4-day work week, they always come back after they get the data and they're like, hey, this was just the most successful thing anybody's ever done, ever. And it's like, productivity either stayed the same or it went up. People report being really happy. Even like the bosses and corporate are happy since productivity stayed the same and went up, right? So this is one of those things where it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. And by the way, if this is something that doesn't even affect the bottom line in a negative way, there's no reason not to do it. And, as soon as corporations catch on, they might actually say, 4-day work week might be the way to go. Because you're getting fewer hours, but you're getting those hours are more fruitful and productive. Okay, so that's one. The other one is all these fucking UBI studies come back and it's like, this was the biggest success of all time. So now let's proceed and have nobody else do it. Like, this is what happens. The 4-day work week thing, look, even though the evidence is there, yawn fest and, you don't have massive movements towards it. UBI, same thing, unmitigated success. And it's just, let's go ahead and not do that. I mean, that's one of the most frustrating things about living in this day and age is like, you can prove something 100% without a doubt, and society just yawns and moves on and acts like we didn't.
I don't know what studies Kyle is trying to cite for a 4-day work week, but here are some skepticism of some research in the 4-day work week, such as this interview from Wisconsin School of Business, where they asked this associate professor of management and human resources on a particular study. He pointed out flaws in the study from an advocacy group, such as doing a 7% reduction in hours instead of a 20% reduction. He also pointed out another flaw in the 4-day workweek studies in general, such as jobs that need longer hours like mail carriers, and individual perceptions such as wanting to be in the office rather than be in their household because of a dangerous home environment. In my opinion, I am fine with a business that voluntarily does a 4-day work week, but I don't think they should be mandatory due to the fact that many businesses are different and have different wants and needs. Now then, let's go over my skepticism of studies with UBI with the study that Kyle is going to cite.
Just find something that's a game changer. Okay, so with that being said, Business Insider has the following. Denver gave people experiencing homelessness $1,000 a month. A year later, nearly half of participants had housing. Oh, but it's an even bigger success than that. So here we go. Jeroen Laws lived in his car in a restaurant parking lot near downtown Denver. He worked there as a cook until 2020 and only had $400 a month left after paying bills and child support. That was barely enough to cover his car payments and child support, and not even close to what he would need for rent. The 51-year-old occasionally spent part of his paycheck on weekend stays at a cheap hotel, where he could spend time with his children. He struggled to afford food, clothes, and medicine, and he had been experiencing homelessness for nearly a decade. God damn. That changed when by the way, let me just point out real quick. The dude was working full time and still couldn't afford a roof over his head. What does that say about the nature of our system? That seems kind of like a broken system to me. If you can work and you're still living on the street, almost like that system.
I agree that our system is flawed and there are things we could do to improve it from a free market perspective. I would recommend this book, Empowering the New American Worker. Of course, the evidence that Kyle presented is anecdotal evidence, and I would recommend watching this Mint This Way video for why anecdotal evidence is problematic, because the people could be either making stuff up or leaving some important details out.
Needs immediate reform. That changed when Laws enrolled in the Denver Basic Income Project. The pilot allowed Laws to secure a temporary apartment with furniture, spend more time with his children, and find a better paying job. Quote, I had questioned myself if I was going to be a good father to my children because I was suffering, Laws previously told Business Insider. When I got accepted, it changed my life. Denver's basic income pilot, which first started payments in fall 2022, focused on over 800 Coloradans experiencing homelessness, including people living in cars, temporary shelters, the outdoors, or other non-fixed living situations. Participants, like Laws, were given direct cash payments, no strings attached, and could spend the money on whatever they needed. Denver released the project's one-year report on June 18th, showing that 45% of participants secured their own house or apartment after receiving basic income for 10 months. So for half of them, they were off the street with just the basic income payment. They also experienced fewer emergency room visits, nights spent in a hospital or temporary shelter, and jail stays. The report estimates that this reduction in public service use saved the city nearly $600,000. Let me repeat that. You give homeless people $1,000 a month, and it saves the government money. It saves them money. Because, of course, the libertarian response or the fiscal conservative response, they'd look at this report and go, look, it's all fine and dandy to give them $1,000 a month, but who the fuck's going to pay for it? Taxpayers don't want to pay for it, nor should they have to pay for it. This is what you'd hear from a conservative or a Republican or a libertarian. But the problem with that argument is the taxpayers are paying more if you don't do the $1,000 a month. That's the point. So not only is this the morally correct thing to do, it's also the fiscally conservative thing to do. This debate is over, y'all. There is no debate. There is no discussion. We have our answers. End of conversation. Sometimes you got to call a spade a spade. Sometimes 2 + 2 actually equals 4. Denver's program initially lasted 1 year and was extended in January for another 6 months. Participants were sorted into random groups. One received $1,000 a month for a year. Another got a $6,500 payment up front, followed by $500 a month. And a third got $50 a month as a control group. The city of Denver, the Colorado Trust, and an anonymous foundation funded the project and has already provided more than $9.4 million to participants. Basic income programs like Denver's have become a popular strategy to reduce poverty in U.S. cities. Compared to traditional social services like SNAP or Medicaid, basic income allows participants to spend their money where they need it most. What is fundamentally different about our approach is the way that we start from a place of trust, Mark Donovan, the project founder and executive director, said at a Tuesday press conference. Denver's basic income project helped participants secure housing and jobs. Denver's report found that basic income primarily helped participants pay for immediate expenses like transportation, hygiene, clothes, groceries. Affording bills like rent, healthcare, or debt payments was a top priority for most families. Participants in each payment group reported increased financial stability and reduced reliance on emergency financial assistance programs. Basic income puts low-income families.
Now we get into my major problems with the study itself, which of course Business Insider had to update the article to talk about the flaws with the study. A big problem with the study is that the third group, the control group, that got a small $50 a month reached a similar outcome compared to the other groups that received thousands of dollars through the program. In addition, the $600,000 that Kyle is talking about, to put it into context, was a small fraction to the overall cost of $9.4 million to fund the program, which is like boasting about how much money you save using old rusty nails to build a house while ignoring the potential increased cost of repairs in doing that action. Another problem with the study is that it excluded people with mental illness or addiction, so these results would not be accurate of the homeless problem. And one of the biggest problems with the UBI studies in general is that they get money voluntarily instead of tax dollars. If we were to do a federal UBI to the whole country, it would cost $30 to $40 trillion over 10 years, according to the progressive think tank CBPP, which is close to 100% of all tax revenues that the federal government collects. If we were to actually collect that money through taxes, it would be problematic to the economy, because this study from the National Bureau of Economic Research found that a exogenous tax increase of 1% of GDP lowers real GDP by roughly 2 to 3%. And this study from the National Tax Journal found that a corporate taxes are 60% burden on workers' wages.
On an equal playing field. Look, just to give you one more here, remember the original UBI program in this country, the Stockton, California program. Just to remind you, this is what the money was spent on. Because again, something the conservatives and the Republicans and the libertarians say, about something like a UBI. Some of them might support it, but most of them would say the following. Yeah, it's all fine and dandy giving these people $1,000 a month, but how do we know they're not going to go ahead and spend it on drugs or alcohol or, candy, shitty food? How do we know they're not going to waste that money and then be right back at square one, right? Look at this. For the Stockton program, 37% of the money went to food. 22% went to home goods, clothes, and shoes. 11% went to utility payments. 10% went to auto costs. And less than 1% were spent on alcohol.
The economist Wayne Weingarten pointed out flaws with the Stockton study, such as the sample size are not representative of the population, and it does not have control for many changes that may have happened, and with the spending, it only looked at the $500. It does not look at the total household spending. So the participants of the study could have used the freed up money elsewhere to buy alcohol and other junk. One last criticism of the UBI studies in general are that they are usually temporary, and according to the economist Milton Friedman, there's a thing called the permanent income hypothesis, where people spend things differently if money were more permanent. An example would be a one-time bonus in buying yourself a gift compared to getting a raise where your lifestyle spending would change. So in this case, people knowing the program would be temporary will try to spend wisely with money compared to being reckless with the money. If you want to know more criticism of UBI, I would recommend the book Universal Basic Income For and Against by Anthony Semiroff. This is the end of the video. Thank you for watching, and please donate to my Patreon so I can make more videos and have your video requests checkmated. And thanks for watching, and have a nice day.